Welcome, rejoicing day, everyone, family. My name is Celivette Guerra, and for those who have been following along, originally this channel was diving into separation and unhealthy relationships and all that type of criteria. And now it has been transitioning into restoration of faith as I continue on my path. So today I want to dive deep what it looks like. How does faith show up in your life after you're in that grieving process of the death of who you once was and who you will no longer be? And I just wanted to honor that and dive deep a little bit as to how does it show up? Where does it begin? What does that look like? How to identify it? So let's dive in. Okay, so as going through, and this can be different scenarios. It doesn't have to be a separation of with a loved one. It could be a loss of a family member. It could just be a loss of a job. It could be a relocation of a home. Anything that feels like you're a season in your life of a winter in your life, that season of death, that season of letting go, that season of grief. And in the midst of that season, you find yourself almost feeling like, and this is how you identify, it's almost feeling like you're going crazy, right? You don't know what to think anymore. You don't know what's real, what's not. You don't know which direction to take. You don't even know who you are or where to begin. So this is how you identify if you're in that season in your life. Now, when you're there, a lot of times we find ourselves at first, we tend to look for outer support, outer understanding. So one of the signs is you tend to call and reach out to people that maybe you haven't spoken to in a while. You reach out to, those friends that have been with you throughout life, maybe even throughout that job, or maybe throughout that location that you were in the past, maybe throughout that relationship that you had. So these are a type of group of friends that you really connected with and you were really deep with, and you reach out to them. But what you're doing each and every single time, whether you realize it or not, and I'll be honest in saying I couldn't even recognize I was doing that myself. But what you would do is you would reach out and basically vent, right? You're creating this safe space with this individual, and you don't know any better. So you're just like venting and expressing the situation and expressing how you're feeling and what's happening in your life. And as you do this, right, they have their own view of the world. They have their own generational curses. They have their own burdens and beliefs and values that now they're going to push onto you. So because you're in this state of just seeking for a Hail Mary, you're just looking for that one thing that can keep you grounded, keeping your head above water. So you're listening to them, and a lot of times in your soul, right, when you're walking into faith, when you're going to step into that, you can tell that not necessarily, I mean, that what they are telling you, they mean well, but you just know that that belief that they're trying to share onto you doesn't really belong to you. So for example, one of the things that was very common for me in my specific situation when I was going through the death of a 21-year relationship, right? That separation, that sense of rejection, right? Like they didn't want you, they rejected you, they let you go. You felt so disposable, right? So replaceable in someone's life after giving so much. What I would hear is, I don't understand. They would tell me stuff like, why didn't you slap him? Why didn't you should hate him. You should, things that I was told was like, you should wish the worst upon them. You should, just have this poison type of sense towards this individual. And I knew they meant well because they were hurting from what I was expressing in my pain, which I was just looking for an healthy outlet. They were just giving those values and those beliefs and those conditioned programmings of how to address that type of situation. So that's what they were relaying. But deep down inside of me, it just didn't feel right, not once, every time they mentioned it, because again, without knowing, but I was tuning in intuitively that I was love and I am love, and that's just not me, you know. I couldn't give what was being given to me, or was being advised for me to do. So this is a sign, right? And then what that allowed me, because I was connecting to that understanding, and as I continued to share with other friends, what I came to realize is it was very crucial and important to talk to someone that's been there, right? You can't vent, like in my situation, you know, you can't vent to someone that's only been in a 3-year relationship or something like that, or has never really even gone through um, the grieving process of a relationship. So let's say you're in a job and you've been there for years and you really was looking forward to a promotion, and then here comes a new guy and this person gets the promotion before you when you've done the hours, you've done the work, right? And you go through this grieving process, and you're venting to another coworker which only probably been there a year, and you know their view of the world long term is not to really stay with the company but a different idea of the world. So you kind of still feel like something is missing. There's a disconnect between you and that person that you're venting to in that safe space. These are all things to look out for. So as you continue, and now we're coming to the understanding how it shows up in your life, is because you're starting to feel crazy, you don't know what to believe. The people that mean well, they're not really giving you advice that's really aligning with your heart, with your soul, with who God has made you to be. So then you start doing this thing where it feels like you're talking to yourself and you're going crazy, and you feel like you're so depleted and you have no strength, that then you find yourself only, well, in my case, right, because this is imperfect journey. This is how we restore faith. This is, you know, what it looks like to be where you were when you were in the trenches, to connecting with God. So this is not perfect. This is very imperfect in this channel, where I'm very transparent, extremely an open book, and it's only to serve as an example for where you are, and just share to be of service, and share the wisdom, the life notes that I've gathered throughout life as I continue to go along this path, along this journey. So for me, when I kept calling and kept getting this realization that I wasn't getting the fulfillment that I was looking for, I was understanding there was something that was missing. And this is when I started going into prayer. It's almost like there's the 8 stages of grief, if you will. So it's almost like the negotiation stage, or that begging stage, whatever stage you want to you connect with, because for everyone is different. That's where I went into. So here I am, and I started talking to God, because here I am alone with the 4 children, trying to give face for them, even though inside you're eternally not there. There's literally nothing left of you. And you just want to understand why. And you're stuck on trying to find the pieces that are put together, right? These are all signs that can give you the validation and the confirmation that this is you, and this message is meant for you, and that you're here. So you start asking those questions of what did you do wrong? You start taking on the blame, and you start talking to God, saying, you know, how you would do things different, and you start praying. And when it reached the point of understanding, right? Because when you truly are invested in a person, and your emotions are genuine, and you really did set your life to be in that company for a lifetime, right, long term, or be in that relationship for a lifetime, a long term, you don't just give up, right? You don't want to walk away with a sense of regret. So even if it's humiliating, even if it's embarrassing, even if it's so extremely degrading and difficult to do, you really give it your all. For me, during that time period, I would show up, I would be there, just be there, show up, give my all, be very forgiving, be very loving, try to advocate. You've become a different person because we're born anew every single day. You've gone through the grieving process and now you're praying to God. So you're getting that inner strength, right? His might is now flowing through you, maybe at a very slow dose of whatever it may be, but it's there. So now you're giving your all. You're changing. Now you're trying to show who you are as you are to this individual, and they can either see you for who you've become now, or they can either remain seeing you for who you once was, because they too have their own filters and their own wounds and their own generational curses and their own demons attached that they too have to release and work through. So once you come to this realization and you see that there's a repeating pattern, right? Because God will come into your life to disrupt your life, to allow you to return back to his purpose and his calling over your life. So once you gave it your all and you see that's only a repeating cycle, then you really truly, that's when you come to that moment of acceptance. So it's not easy. It's extremely painful, right? It's a grieving process, and I can't say it enough because it's like this anguish that's within every single pore of your body, every cell, every essence that is you. It's completely consuming of who you are. So in that moment, when you're ready to give up, when you're ready to throw in the towel, I remember and I recall for myself personally, I was staying on a mattress on the floor at a friend's house because, we had to call it quits in that moment. So here I am at a friend's house and I'm on the air mattress in the living room floor with my daughter, who was 3 at the time. And I just remember not being able to sleep. I remember finding myself in prayer every night at 3 in the morning and just literally crying the entire night and just being on my knees the entire night against this air mattress and just praying to God, really negotiating for this opportunity, right? Because we think we know what we need and we want in life, and he always knows better. And I just remember praying for the individual and praying for every single party that was involved, even those that would be degrading me and calling me names. But regardless to that, I would still pray for each and every one of them every single day. And to be honest, I still do today. But in that moment, when I decided, that's it, I'm not going to repeat the pattern, which in the past for me was always remaining placed on hold while this person, just ventured off with the new thing, the new encounter. And then, it would just come back and then the whole cycle would repeat again. So at that moment, I decided I wasn't going to repeat that cycle. I can see my daughter, because in this time, it's the first time that has happened since I had my daughter. So unlike in the past where I had the boys only, it was very different. It was like something within me. And I could say most definitely not only was it God, but it's just a realization, becoming aware of a pattern and what I wanted to model for my daughter at the time. So, how God and how faith played a role in that moment was, I remember I decided to come back to Connecticut. And that alone was very difficult for me because I would be the type of person that I wouldn't even drive 30 minutes away. And my partner at the time would be the individual to do all the driving. I was very scared to drive far. I wouldn't do it. And in this instant, because I've decided to return now, this is Florida to Connecticut. That's a very long drive for someone that's only driven 30 minutes away, max. So I just remember when I made the decision, it was just this grief and this anguish and crying all the time. So again, given face, showing up at your best, because you're not just going through this process alone. Here you are, people counting on you, and yet you have nothing left to give. So I remember clearly I would put my daughter in the shower or in the bathtub and I would close the curtain, and in that moment, because I couldn't, it was like a step. I was taking a day at a time, but a step at a time. So, okay, in this step, I gotta give her a bath, and I'm so depleted emotionally and going through this stuff. And I just remember putting her in the bathroom, and I really was protecting her, if you will, from seeing my sorrow. And I remember closing the curtain, but just to do that action and provide care for her, I remember being on my knees right there on front of the bathroom sink, sometimes even again, in the toilet, whatever, and just praying. And I'm there praying, and as I'm trying to get the words out, I could barely get the words out. I just remember crying and just pouring tears and crying. And well, my baby girl's right there behind a curtain, just taking a bath and stuff. And that is faith. That's how the beginning of the relationship of faith looks like. It's it's people think, oh, this happiness, this joy, and it's easy. No, no, it takes work, takes hard, heavy work. It takes decision. You choose. It's like a marriage. They say with a marriage, it's a choice. It's a choice every day. So you're choosing every day. You're choosing. It's a choice to create this new relationship with this spirit, this faith, this God for which you had so much resistance to, which you had these stories of it being bad, in a sense of being a place of judgment, being a place of rejection, being a place of always dooming you to hell, right? And so all those old beliefs and attachments of what you thought faith was, or what you thought God is, or the path of Jesus Christ is so difficult. So it's an inner chaos, inner struggle, inner conflict that you're working through, but at the same time following your intuition and that calling inside you as you're surrendering. So I can say that sure enough, I prayed, I packed my stuff that I had brought with me into my vehicle, and the whole entire time I'm holding on to the steering wheel, I am praying to the God, and we're playing music, we're just having a good time laughing, trying to stay in this moment of joy, which I didn't realize we were doing. What one of the words in the Bible says to us is give unto him, right, our worries and our anxieties, and just rejoice in this day. And in that most difficult moment of my life to this day, we were rejoicing, and we were praying to God, and we were including him, and we were appreciating all he has created for us, just looking at the sun, looking at the stars, because it takes like a day almost to drive from one location to the other, and just looking at the beauty that was surrounding us, the trees, the way the sunlight looked as we passed all the trees and stuff like that. So that was faith showing up in our life, and that was the beginning of the relationship with faith in my life and the life of my children. And yet I didn't understand that that's what that was. For me, it came across as me being crazy, talking to myself, when really, as I laid there in bed looking at the ceiling, I wasn't talking to myself. There was someone listening. There was someone that was faithfully there the entire time, and that was God. That's definitely what it looked like. And I remember when I returned back to Connecticut, to my old apartment where I had all these memories with this individual, and it was very difficult to walk through that door, right? I wanted to be anywhere but there, but yet that's where I needed to dive into with the children and the people that counted on me. And I just remember every night, I mean, I cried most days. I was curled up in the ball most days. I had gotten rid of some stuff, so we had a mattress on the floor. I don't know if I'll attach an image of that just to show what the mattress on the floor looked like, but it was very sad. And I just remember that I had this rosary. Let me just, I just wanted to show you guys. So this is the rosary. It's broken. And, it's not a religious thing. Remember, this is the beginning of my path and understanding. And this is what I had as a symbol of his love and representation over my life. So I remember, and I still have it because it's a reminder of that very difficult uh journey, obstacle, whatever, test, trial that I walk through. He walked through with me. So this is just a reminder, and I really keep it, even though it's like I said, it's broken. And so I remember when I arrived back to Connecticut, I would curl up in bed and cry most of the time, be barely functioning. Thankfully, I had my other boys and I had my niece with me, so they were able to help out with my 3-year-old and the 12-year-old, the two youngest ones, if you will. And I also had my daughter-in-law that was present at the time. So I just remember every time I went to bed, it was the most scariest thing ever. I couldn't even sleep at night. So the only way I gained, and this is building the relationship with faith, not religion, is faith, is the path of Jesus Christ, was I remember holding every night faithfully, most of the day too, if I needed to, but I would wrap it around my hand like this, and I would just keep it, and I would sleep with it. And it just gave me this sense of him wrapping me with his love, with the Holy Spirit, wrapping me with his comfort, with his claim over my life as his, where I felt so disposable by another. He saw nothing but the beauty in me and my heart and soul when I couldn't even see it for myself. And I didn't even know that's what was happening. And that is how faith shows up. Those are the beginning stages of how faith shows up in your life. And you really don't know. You can't even see it as that. You just, here I am holding on to this rosary for dear life and just praying to God for mercy over my life. Please give me strength. Please get me through this, and in acceptance. And that's like when my knees bent, the one of acceptance, right? I accept it. And the one of surrender. Please, if this is your will over me, like I accept it. And I'm crying in grief and pain. You know what it is to say thank you for something that is so extremely painful? And yet, as you're going through the pain, feeling grateful. And I know they say you carry your own cross, but let me tell you, if I have any remote example of what Jesus went on the cross for us, was what I felt during that time. Because his last words was what? Father, please forgive them, for they know not what they do. And in that moment, as I'm holding on to this for strength, as I tried to sleep, and I could only sleep because I had this symbol, this representation that he has me, that he's guiding me, that he's protecting me, that I am placed in his hands, and I am covered in the blood of the Lamb, and I am covered in his mercy. And that's how, in those moments, I could still say thank you to God without understanding it. And that's when it became clear for you. And this is key for you to know, that you are already stepped forward into the walk of faith, restoration of your faith. Your relationship with God is just being grateful for that pain. You're actually grateful for the pain. You're actually grateful for your cross. You're actually grateful for that anguish that is flowing through you. Almost feels like consuming you, but yet you're grateful. And then you're brave enough, and I said this out loud to a couple of people that reached out, is you're even grateful he did what I didn't have courage to do, which was end it, because it wasn't serving me. And God knew that. And God allowed him to put that grace into ending it. Even though for me, I would have held on to the end of this lifetime, this life that God has given me. And that is what your beginning of the restoration of faith looks like. It's not easy. And at the same time, still pray for this individual, every single person that feels that they love and care for, even, like I said, even those that don't support you, don't see you in such a light. And that was definitely the beginning of my path. And as I continue to hold on to this symbol, this representation of he who covers me and he who walks with me, my defender, my provider, it came a day where I he sent me an earth angel, I say. I had actually left the house, the apartment, and I was staying at a friend's house for 3 days, literally in bed. She, she's an adult just like me, so she cared for, she helped me with my daughter and stuff. I couldn't get off of her son's bed at all for 3 days, just there. Mind you, I went to just have a cup of coffee that day. I went to her house just to have a cup of coffee, and as I'm there at her home, yeah, I said, "Oh, I really need a nap because I haven't slept, right? You're not sleeping, you're exhausted, you're in this survival mode, you're giving from a depleted place." So I said I needed a nap, and a nap was, I think I slept like a whole day. And she was caring for my daughter. And then I woke up, I think, to just use the restroom and stuff, maybe have a bite, and then go right back to sleep. And I did that for 3 days. And then I remember my oldest son at the time, who was 18, calling me, asking me, "Hey, mom, like, are you coming back home?" And I said, "Yes." I just needed that time. And, the God filled me up with that Holy Spirit and that living water during those 3 days where I was at my friend's house. And then I remember going back home, and I was different. Something had changed, and I went into prayer. Now I had this prayer life, a faithful prayer life over my new lifestyle. And I just remember waking up the next day, and the best explanation I give to people was, you're driving a car and you can see at nighttime because you have the headlights on. But that day when I woke up, and some call it a spiritual awakening at the time, but it was just the covering of the Holy Spirit in my life. And I didn't know that's what that was. And again, this is an imperfect um elevation of restoration of faith. So I will say some terms that might be triggering for some, but it's just to make the connection, because it's like a baby. A baby doesn't just go ahead and walk and run and hop, right? It goes through a process of crawling, first turning, then sitting, then crawling, then walking, running, then hopping. So you give yourself the same grace. So at the time, and what many in their cycle that they're in their life right now, this season, they're calling it a spiritual awakening, but it's really the covering of the Holy Spirit in your life. And as I had that covering, it feels like, and back to my metaphor, instead of the car and the headlights being on as we live life that way this whole entire time, it's like the high beams went on, where you could see this expansion and this extension, this understanding, this Christ consciousness, this awareness that wasn't there before. You see areas because of the headlights, something higher and greater that now has filled your soul with that living water, and now you can see. And the feeling is this jubilee feeling of just innocence and pureness and joy. And it's so hard to explain. It's an overflow of it, and it's the most beautiful feeling that you experience. And that was the birth of the beginning of the restoration of my faith, our faith, right, with God. So I hope this story helps you in your path and understanding where you are and where you're heading to. Please give yourself some grace, kindness, compassion, where you are, and understanding, because in the beginning, I didn't know better. In the beginning where I was there, it's like, okay, spiritual awakening, this and that. And I dove deep into and that'll be later on. I'll share that journey to get me here, to get me where I am. And God uses all of that. So you forgive yourself. You don't judge yourself. You don't do that inner criticism. And you definitely don't take the beliefs of what other people view you as because of the path you're on right now. You keep steady. You keep consistent. You keep staying obedient. Listen to that intuition, because it's going to connect you and guide you closer to He who is greater than all of us, every single one of us. And that's what this channel is about. It's allowing you the grace to get you, allowing yourself to, try to walk and fall a couple of times, scrape those knees a couple of times, because this is not a perfect, and this is not a place of judgment. This is a place of guidance. So with that being said, I love you all so much. Until next time, take care. Also, if you don't mind, if you like to, please like, share, and subscribe. And if this message really resonated with you, or it really served you, and you would like to give back or just sow into the channel and the mission of this community, please feel free to look up any of your options below in the description box. And if you're looking for a prayer request and you have a prayer request, in the description box, you will also find an email attached where you can send in your prayer requests, and I will be definitely praying for you as received. So till next time, bye guys.